Car parts came in, finally. Okay, so if you guys have been following the shoebox build, and if you're here, you probably are following. What had happened was I got the air in the front of it. Looks awesome. It could be a little bit lower, but we'll cover that in another video another day. But the rear end I static dropped, and I did it by removing some leaves and doing lowering blocks. So not the best way to drop the rear end of it, especially without like moving the location of the shock. Basically like the shock on these things is at this crazy angle from the factory. And when you drop it, that angle becomes even a little bit more extreme. And that's just, it's not ideal for controlling axle movement. Plus when you take leaves out, the axle becomes extra weak and it is not controlling, especially wrap. So when that happens, you might have a pinion that's pointing a bit high. Worst case scenario, it might be actually hitting the floor. And I've actually had that happen, especially when the transmission was shifting like shit. It would actually hit the floor. So anyway, now what I've been waiting on are the airbags because I'm doing an air over leaf setup in the back end of this thing as a temporary solution because I will eventually be doing a nice link setup in the back of it. So those parts finally came in. This is kind of the car guy story of the pandemic. We got supply chain issues that are affecting everything and far more important things like baby formula and diesel exhaust fluid and these things that like kind of, we need and keep the world going. But car parts have been especially affected. So I had ordered this kit from RideTech that is intended for these cars. It's an air over leaf setup. And I never intended for the air over leaf to be like supporting the entire car because I just don't find that to be ideal. What you end up doing is you have to run like a mono leaf or maybe like only 2 leaves in the back end of it. And that's like extra soft. It's not really controlling movement great, except for like, it basically controls a little bit of movement, keeps it fairly parallel, perpendicular to the car, but it's not perfect. People done it and it works okay. There's ways to do it, and we'll talk about that in another video. But I really just want to static drop it and then have the air as a means to provide a little bit more support, a little bit more axle control, and be able to lift it up so that I can cruise. It's just kind of like the front end where it's like the bags are really there to get it set a nice like cruise height, and then you air down because you want it to look good parked. So makes sense, right? So anyway, my parts finally came in. This kit that I had ordered, this RideTech Air Over Leaf, they shipped it, and then it arrived, and I realized that the bags weren't in it. And so it's Firestone sleeve bags. For the longest time, I must have waited like 6 months. It was right around 6 months for these things to come in. And in the meantime, I had ordered some like lower rated bags that actually are in stock. But they would have been fairly inadequate for the rear end. You'd required like a lot of air pressure to lift the thing a whole lot, which isn't the end of the world. And that's why I had ordered them. But then a week or two, or 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, sure as shit, these airbags kind of come in. The appropriate airbags come in. So anyway, let's take all the parts, let's set them up on the motorcycle lift table because the only horizontal service that doesn't have stuff on it. And let's talk about the components that I had come in, and also a very cool deadline that we got coming up on the Ford. So let's do it. All right, guys, scoot that out of the way. All right, so here's what we got. This is the original kit. So it's got all the super cool brackets, everything like that. Yep. So basically, yeah, this whole box is like airlines, couple fittings, stuff like that, and then you've got the bag brackets. So these kind of bolt on or weld onto the side of your frame, and then this is what goes on to your leaf springs, and then the bag sits on top of that. And this plate, I think, is just kind of an extra. It's like a big washer, basically. So very simple concept. That can sit both in the front or in the back of the axle. So it depends. Like, I think if you put it in front, it might help a little bit with axle wrap. So I have to look at the proximity of my my exhaust and that kind of thing to see what kind of space I have in there. So that's to be determined, but we'll cover that in another video. I should have opened this first. It's got these huge staples. There we go. Okay. Oh yeah. So these are the little baby bags. Let's see if we got a... Oh, okay. These actually might be the appropriate ones that are rated for this, which is kind of amazing. That's all there is to them. Let's open up the other one. Yeah, I think this is actually the smaller bag because this should have airline in it. Yep. So check this out. A little extra airline. These are the smaller bags that aren't rated for quite as much, which is a 7076. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yep, so they actually look pretty damn similar, but one is rated for more weight, and you can actually tell just with the outside shape of it. You can see that the sleeve is rolled a little bit more on this bag. Actually, the texture is different. It's a little bit rougher. You can, like, the bellows actually feel a little bit stiffer, so you can tell that these aren't rated at quite as much weight as these guys. But yeah, so what's really cool about these is that basically the way that this is meant to sit is the top mounting piece doubles as the fitting, the air fitting on the top. So slide this bracket on, which that is really tight. I might actually have to open that up a tiny bit. Bracket slides onto the top of that, and then you have a single mounting on the little mounting hole on the bottom of it. So you're going to slide a fastener up through, bolt it all down, and that's going to sit on this bracket on the axle. So very simple concept. And yeah, so these, the benefit of them is that they are taller than a typical double bellow, from what I've heard. So I think this helps a little bit when you're dealing with, you know, your leaf spring to frame clearances and that sort of thing. So yeah, and again, like we're gonna talk about this a lot more in the next video when we deep dive into the Air Over Leaf setups. But here are the components. So obviously we're going to use the ones that are intended for a bit more weight. Now, why this is important? Well, one, I want to get it done in the car anyway so that it rides a little bit better and rides a little higher, you know, for cruising. But also, I have Power Cruise coming up. So you guys would have seen in previous videos where we're taking the cars out to Power Cruise. We go camping. It's this pretty amazing event that was designed by the Australians, and they happened to pick Minnesota for the track, and that's Brainerd International Raceway. It's a really cool, very old school track. It's been around for ages. It's one of the few tracks that actually has camping in the middle of the road course. So the road course goes around the camping area, and there's like bridges and stuff to like get to the camping area. It's really cool. And Power Cruise is just a weekend of mayhem. It's cruising on the road course and racing your buddies on the straights. It's super casual. It brings out some mind-blowing cars. and it's a ton of fun. So we love going to it because it's kind of a minimal egos kind of event. You hang out, you take your car out there, you drink some beers at night, have a fire, go dancing. They've got some nightlife stuff that happens. It's a blast. And generally speaking, it's mostly the adults. There's not a whole lot of like drunken 18-year-olds that are there. So that's kind of nice. But anyway, guys, yeah, so that's the plan. I got 30 days to get that done. Actually, a little bit less than 30 days now. So I got to get the air overleaf in the back of it. And I think I got to do something to kind of manage the heat that comes into the cab from the exhaust that is very close to the floor. So I'm going to do something to seal up the floor a little bit better. So those are the bulk of the things I'm going to do, and then toss in some seat belts so that I can safely get out on the track. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I wanted to do a little show and tell video here today and say that expect to see some more shoebox content, especially over the next month here as I get that thing done and I get the air suspension finally dialed in the back end of it. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting the channel. If you guys aren't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. It goes a long way to support the channel. Every view counts, and we're at the point now where we're finally monetized and generating a little bit of revenue from it. And every penny that we generate from this kind of goes right back into Dad Mods, and that is running events, it's working on the projects, it's sponsorships, it's all that kind of stuff. So trying to do good with the money that we generate from this, and you know, have a lot of fun in the process. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.